Hallstrom. I'm an operations specialist. And today I've got my video editor, actually, Juan Pablo, who on with us today, who really does a lot of great work in his space as well. And if you haven't been here before, we're going to talk all about clarity and its power and impact in life, business, and problem solving success, whether it's something small or grand scheme as well. Welcome, Juan Pablo. Give us a little bit of an introduction quickly of just who you are, what you do, and what kind of your role is in this space.
Absolutely, Jesse. Thank you so much. Appreciate for having me here. My name is Juanpa, also known as JP, and I help business owners get in front of the camera and edit their content as either reels or long form content. That's
Awesome.
it.
Yeah, no, it's really good stuff. Obviously, that's kind of popped up over the past little bit, but it's engaging. And I find that really what a lot of trends are just simply things that people resonate with that become popular or not as popular. And we just all kind of ride that wave as we go. So it's fun to see all that coming together. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of time to kind of speak to how that journey has been for you personally. And then I want to hear a little bit about how the role and the power of clarity really impacts what you do with your clients as well. But why don't you give us a bit of background in terms of kind of like what's really brought you up to this point? What are the points of clarity that really kind of keyed you into what's valuable for you to do with your time?
Whoa, awesome! Thank you for that loaded question.
There's a
So,
few in there.
where do I even begin? So, when it comes to my agency and when the points of clarity that I think are most important, and I think I've kind of learned the hard way because I kind of just started this online thing about 2 years ago and just kind of threw up an offer. Then the reels kind of evolved, and it's like, oh, let's get into reels. It started with like doing VSL like funnels, like video sales letters, getting scripting them and writing them for the client, and then getting them to deliver the script of the VSL. And then that was kind of like the beginning of it. And then it turned into just, hey, let's just help people make reels. So for me in the video agency, I think the points of clarity that I've learned the hard way is having a contract with clients that is, or at least like an invoice is very specific and exactly what's going to be delivered. Something recently happened where the client from like a year ago, we never really established clarity in what we're going to do. So that's kind of resurfacing right now. But in terms of operations for me, probably the most important thing is just honestly, this is a tiny thing, but just creating like a channel per client and assigning a specific editor per client and not having multiples. So something as
Mm, a
simple as that.
little bit of focus
Um,
too, right?
and then most recently, actually this morning, we created a Trello board. And just to give you a bit of context, I was hiring contractors before, so I didn't have any kind of workflow. I was just like, here, I just need to do this, and I'll pay you per video type of thing. And now, most recently, in the last like 2 months, it's when I decided to have my own editing team, and that's what I'm working on now. So today we created a Trello board, and then just like because our workflow is really simple, and
Hmm.
so we just need kind of like where we are and what is step 2, 3, and 4, and at what
Right.
points do we need approvals from me. So we actually mapped that out this morning with the team, and it was
Cool.
kind of cool. So I'm just kind of developing systems as I see pain points, and because our workflow is extremely simple, um, sometimes I tend to kind of oversee it. But I think having those clarity turning points of when the communication should be going back and forth and when do we need points of approval, and then how do we deliver it to the client. So just
Yeah.
I'm beginning to document my own my own process.
For sure. Well, you mentioned a really important transition actually that a lot of business owners go through at certain points, which is going from kind of just doing everything yourself or yourself and a contractor to building a team. And that requires a very different level of clarity in what you do because you can't pass lessons on to somebody else unless you yourself have a very deep level of clarity and understanding over what it is that you do as well. Like, do you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And so actually that's a really good important point to talk about too, because understanding when to switch strategies or not necessarily switch strategies, but take the next step or when to evolve, let alone how to do it, is its own level of clarity. Like what was it for you that really gave you the clarity that, hey, maybe now is the time to move to my own team rather than just working with contractors? Like what was that process like specifically?
That's a good question. So I felt like with contractors, I still had to get involved in the process anyway, and paying like triple of the amount, double
Mm,
or even triple of the amount of the cost that it would require to do that. Um, so I was basically paying double and still being super involved in the process. So I said to myself, why don't I just develop the process? I kind of did it backwards, to be honest. Like now that I think about it, it's like I should have done this from the beginning, instead of just kind of just whipping something up. And like I pride myself in being crafty too. Like, oh, you actually whipped this up and you made it happen. And I was able to create an income from just kind of putting together a marketing agency specifically on Rails with my skill set. So I was like, oh, cool, that's great. And with enough time, it's basically time. Now that I
mm,
think about it, it's just essentially coming down to how much time do I want to spend in the production of the product and delivering the product. So like basically kind of isolating each stage of the process and see how much time and involvement I want it to be part of. And then deciding that cost is super high, having contractors, I still need to be involved. Why don't I just keep the same level of involvement, but build something from scratch where we can control all of the aspects of the process?
mm.
So yeah, it just kind of naturally happened by having to suffer enough that you're finally it just kind of like pokes you enough
Yeah.
times that you're like, dude, you should just build it from scratch like you should have. So I guess just, yeah, going through the pain of working with contractors and for a long period of time. And then instead, in fact, it was kind of funny how it happened. I had a VA reach out to me,
Mm,
and I usually never respond to these things, but she was like totally different vibe. Like she
mm,
was actually, I could feel the energy. It was a totally different vibe. And she's a recruiter. She's like, how can I help you? How can I really expand your business? Like I felt the energy that she really wanted to help with VAs for either outreach or editors or whatever. And I was like, it gave me like a little light bulb in my brain. It's like, maybe I haven't tried it, but this kind of just showed up in my life and let me give it a shot. So it kind of came to me also, I'm not gonna lie. It
mm,
was like enough pressure point and then enough, and then somebody just kind of arriving. It's like the universe, honestly. It was like,
mm.
what do I need? And the universe kind of just handed it to me. It's like, you need to hire your own team. It was like a divine download. It's like, oh, okay. I think I need to do that. So I kind of just like went ahead with her, and she recruited somebody for me. I liked her. She was super cool personality, and I was like, oh, I really like that. I like working with cool personality. So it just kind of evolved
Yeah.
naturally in my from my position now.
Yeah, for sure. No, that definitely makes sense. And it's funny you described it initially as like a backwards process, but the truth is that the best systems are made when you've experienced the pain first, right? Because then you know exactly what to build against, right? It's kind of like how um, you know, you develop the best ways to build a bridge by understanding how not to do it, right? Because you can build it in a variety of different ways, but unless it supports, it's a load bearing structure, then it's not going to be helpful. And you only know that by navigating around what's been not working. And I'm honestly a big believer, and that's the best way to build systems in the first place is say, what are we wanting to achieve? What's getting in the way? How can we create infrastructure that supports the solution we want, not what we're seeing or what we don't want. So I think that's actually a very natural process to go through the pain first and then develop the system after. Because oftentimes, if you do it, what would be the right way to do it, you can actually create a system that doesn't actually serve the purpose that you're actually looking for because you're creating things that you think might be helpful versus what's actually helpful. So I'm actually a big proponent of doing it that way. And yeah, and just really even speaking to the clarity that you had for making that switch, let alone actually doing it. I think a lot of it comes down to just openness as well. Like we've talked about before, how really making sure that we take the time for ourselves to even think through these things, not just go, 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 do, but give the space for that resonance to take place, because otherwise you can't gain more clarity doing the thing that you're doing until you take a step back. But also being open to the different ideas that you're talking about here really is what provides for that next level. And that's really what it sounds like has taken you from where you were to where you are now as far as building a team. Like, does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And sometimes, and when you said that, it kind of just kind of backtrack a little bit. And when did I get those epiphanies? And sometimes it was like either at the gym or like swimming or going for a walk in nature. And it's like, because I think about the problem, and then you kind of just let go of the business for a minute
Mm.
and just kind of tap into whatever, the
Unattached. Yeah.
universe and yourself, and then just kind of like giving yourself that space for personal space. I think, and I think that's kind of when you get the most ideas. Like you get like, oh, why don't I do this, or oh, why don't I do that? It usually comes from taking that space, like you're saying, more
Hmm.
or less stepping back into personal time. And I think that's when a lot
Yeah.
of the eureka moments happen, or in the shower. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The spaces that we create for ourselves is where that happens. And actually that brings up one thing I wanted to mention, which has to do a little bit more with your process directly as well. Now I understand this because we work together, but really just for anybody watching as well, I wondered if you could speak to the role and the power that gaining clarity is for you and your clients specifically in the work that you do. Because it's one thing to say, all right, let's record some stuff and then see how it goes. But without revealing too much of your process, you have a whole spiel leading up to it so that we both have clarity and are in a place where we can be our best selves. So I wonder if you can diverge or divulge, that's the word, divulge a little bit of your process and how the power or the impact that clarity has in that for you and your clients.
Okay, cool. So process with the client and filming. So I come from a bit of performance arts background, mostly directing behind the scenes, but also a little bit in front of the camera. Went to acting school, did some voiceover acting and stuff. So I kind of bring that forth in our sessions with our clients to be able to draw their most authentic version of themselves in as quickly as possible. So we do some grounding
Really
exercises, some
quickly,
planks.
before
Yeah.
you go on, I don't want to race past what you just said because it was really important. Um, you said something to the effect of making sure that they're their most authentic self. Can you talk about why that's important?
Yeah. Oh man, this is good. I get so passionate about this because I feel like I was inauthentic before.
Mm,
And then I'm like, oh, I look at myself and I'm like, that I just don't like the way I look and sound in the camera. So it's always been a struggle for me. And so that's why I wanted to get myself uncomfortable and go to acting school and like direct and get into film. Um, and then seeing it from that perspective, and then seeing business owners also showing up on camera or not showing up on camera at all, you can kind of just see right through them nowadays.
mm,
Like people are kind of really waking up to like what this whole internet social media marketing thing is. And it's like you can see if the person is like really trying, or they're just being really authentic, or they're maybe somewhere in the middle. So I started becoming very sensitive to seeing these things. And I'm sure most people kind of see it. You know, if you can see if the person is connected with themselves or they're not, you know, if they're thinking too much or they're more in their body and being instinctual. So I think for me, authenticity, and yeah, what's most important is to kind of like become instinctual with your responses when it comes to acting. So
mm,
if we incorporate that into how you show up in front of the camera, it will diminish the amount of um, performance, if that makes
mm.
sense. Right.
Right.
So, because
Because
you
and
can
when
see
you
so a
say
lot of people like
performance, yeah, you mean like
your
simply
demeanor.
putting on a show rather than just showcasing who you are. Is that kind of what you mean?
Exactly. And since like I know that you come from a performance arts background also, and
Mm,
there's just people that don't, so they're just like struggling to find the way they articulate themselves in front of the camera. So then it's like they're like I have two clients specifically that they just like they're masters of what they do, but when they show up in front of the camera, they're like super
it all
weird and
falls
awkward.
apart, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, you've been in business doing this for 25 years, but you really struggle with this. So I bring in that element of acting, but is in activating your instincts. Like when you have
Mm,
a role in a play or a movie, you act within the role. So you drop into character and you act instinctively from the character. But if you do that with yourself, like you can do that also. It's kind of like how can I deliver this? How can I deliver my message in the most authentic way without having to try and without having to cringe at yourself doing it by yourself?
Hmm.
So my system essentially is just doing what we're doing here. It's like um, engaging in a conversation, being instinctual in our responses, and then that way you can start seeing the balance between do I perform or am I just being my authentic instinctual self? And then you're kind of oscillating in between the two. Now that I'm kind of breaking all that down, I've never
Yeah.
said that before, but just thinking
No,
about it
it
right
makes
now,
sense.
it's like you're yes, you're performing, but at the same time, I want you to become instinctual in your response. I don't want you to overthink, and then that's how you find that sweet spot of authenticities where people can receive you because you are connected to your body,
Hmm.
and at the same time you can see that all right, they're trying to put on their podcast interview hat or their whatever hat, right? Like you can almost like alternate between demeanors and how you a- appropriate your consciousness, I guess you could say. You're like appropriating your consciousness based on the circumstances at hand. So like right now, I feel like I'm performing a little bit, but I'm also being instinctual with my responses because we're live on LinkedIn and we're having this interview.
Hmm.
If I was in an interview with a client, like if I was with you, I would have a slightly different demeanor. I'm appropriating my consciousness again and balancing the act between I'm here to receive you and create a space for you to riff and also perform enough that you know that we're in this together, like creating that safe space. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm saying a lot of things, but I don't know if
No,
it's
no, you're
making any
good.
sense.
There's definitely a balancing act to it as well, because oftentimes the problem with what you talked about, where somebody can be an expert in their field, but then they come on the camera and they're just everything falls apart. There is a certain level of practice to that, and that's just the reality of it. As people in theater, we understand, especially in TV, is very different from real people in front of you too. Like, who knows how many people are watching this right now? But if you have a theater of people in front of you, you know, and you can see them, and so that's a very different dynamic. And so one of the things I've had to learn is how to showcase yourself and what you do in a way that is organic and authentic. And for me, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where clarity really comes into play. Because a lot of us out here, and I've been guilty of this myself too at different times, especially early on in the journey, we don't have a lot of clarity over what the heck we're doing here or what it is exactly that we offer that's valuable. And so there's an internal sense of incongruence that manifests in a performance as mistakes, as lack of confidence, as stale and rustiness. And so I know you must have seen that with your clients as well too. Sometimes where it's not the performance that's wrong, it's the level of clarity on the offer, or the business, or even the business owner, what they're doing, that's getting in the way. And so I was curious if you've ever like experienced that and what that process was like, helping them gain clarity first, so that even the performance comes through after.
Mm. I think it's the just bringing to awareness, bringing bringing it to awareness, like bringing the fact that we are in our heads most of the time, and especially when you're going to be in the camera, it's like you don't want to be in your head, you want to be instinctual. It's like just bringing that into awareness is like, oh, wait a minute, so I can become instinctual. Just like bringing that to awareness, just like letting
Mm.
them know that that is possible. And usually the technique that we use in acting or improv is, or in acting is improv.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a technique that really stuck for me. Every time we went into acting school, everybody came into class and everybody's like super heady because they come from their own dimensions, from work, from home, or from uni, and they're all like in their heads, like thinking about all their personal problems, right? And they
Right.
come into the classroom, and then it's like, whoa, why is everybody so tense? So if your energy was like not flowing through your body and it's just up here, it's like you're not going to perform well. So it's like just bringing that to awareness alone. It's like, oh, okay, so I don't need to be in my head. So what's the next step? Next step is to move the energy through your body. So even just like jumping jacks or breathing or just bringing awareness to your body, that's the trick. But going a step further is like playing an improv game. Two of them that I always refer to as passing the ball. So when
Mm-hmm.
you pass a ball back and forth, saying a different word, like we did in our filming session, it really gets you to really step out of your head completely and start feeling more into your body, and that way becoming more instinctual by having the energy flow through your body. If you're alone, you can name things out loud in the room. So you can like just walk around your office and be like camera, light, cat, kitty, whiteboard, chair, and you can just like name things out loud as quickly as you can, so you can again develop your instincts.
Mm.
So using those two techniques, it's really really cool. And so the authenticity and clarity that you're asking me about, um, it really comes from that one little step. Honestly, just bringing awareness to the fact that you can you can project the responses instinctually from your body instead of having to think about it. Because I think that's
Mm.
the main thing that with a lot of my clients is like, I've tried saying this thing a million times, but I'm just thinking about it. It's like, then let's not think about it. Think about, like, let's talk about the things that you are an expert about. And
Mm-hmm.
how can we draw that out of you by you feeling yourself and being very calm inside your body? So
Yeah.
does that, yeah, I think I'm kind of dancing around the question
Yeah,
and the answer,
no,
but
no, that definitely brings it home. And it's even there's even another layer to that I'm realizing too. I just took a couple notes on it, which is as much as clarity is multifaceted, right? Like as much as we talk about how focusing in on what it is you want or want to achieve or something that is very important, but what you're talking about is a different level too, where sometimes eh, gaining a greater level of clarity is removing things that are in the way, like an emotional or mental state that's clouding your judgment or even what you're viewing. And all of these exercises are targeting a very different energy state as well as thought state. And to me, I think that that's an important thing for people to remember, which is clarity is just creating a more transparent understanding of the world, of yourself and the world around you. Sometimes that's zooming in, sometimes it's zooming out. And I think that that's a good example of like metaphorically zooming out, just like, okay, well, let me get rid of the stuff that's right in front of my face and see what's really in front of me. Kind of like seeing the forest through the trees, so to speak, but on an energy level too. That's kind of what you're talking about. That's reminded me of.
yeah, that's really interesting. Now we're getting to like really deep levels of clarity here. Because
It
I was
always
thinking of,
there's always another level, right? That's one reason I love talking about this, because you can apply it to something that's literally a piece of paper in front of you, or your greater like place in what you're doing. And oftentimes the most important decisions, or the most important clarities, are the deeper ones, right? It's not just the superficial ones, and oftentimes the deeper ones solve the superficial issues as well as you go up and onward. You know what I mean?
wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then it just at that point, it's just like mindset, literally just like
Yeah.
clarity in the mind. And then, yeah, having clarity around the systems, it's important, and delegation and SOPs and all that. But like at the top, at the very top, the clarity from the business owner needs to be super clear, not just on the business or the structure or the offer, but the clarity of their why, their reasons why they're doing what they're
Right.
doing, probably is a good one. And are they, is that why connected to their body? I don't know. Does that even make any sense? But like,
Well, it's
do they
connected to
really want to do
identity.
it?
That's for
Connect to
sure.
identity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've talked about that before, but that's what it always comes back to. And so I think that, yeah, you mentioned why is a good place. That oftentimes people talk about, why do we need to like figure out a why for my business? I just want to make money, or I just want to serve these people. It's like, sure, but like realistically, that is a more superficial level of clarity over what you're doing. And if you go deeper, you'll be able to solve problems much more effectively, much more accurately for you personally, because you might have two different ways of solving a problem that's more relevant for two different types of people and their working lifestyles. And we could probably talk about that for another hour, but realistically, that's where it begins, right? It's in the understanding of where is my current level of clarity, what to my left and to my right should maybe I spend some time on, and what are the effects that's going to produce as well. Because this is really the important part is, everyone can sit around all day and become a philosopher over what you think you should do, but it's putting it to action, creating the results. That's really what we're focused on here as well, is taking it through to that next level. So I really appreciate you speaking to that. And unfortunately, we're kind of running low on our time here, but I think that this has been really fruitful conversation. So I obviously, we work together very well. But for anybody else who doesn't know you, Wampa, or would love to hear more about what you have to say too, just remind us again what it is you do and how people can connect best with you if they want to reach out.
Yeah, 100%. Just want to kind of say that we touched on a lot of levels of clarity, and it actually gave me clarity too. And I think clarity, that's what clarity is attached to motivation. Like sometimes, we live through our days, but those spikes of progress and clarity are the ones that really motivate you to keep moving forward. And I got a little boost of that today. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Good. Good. Awesome. That's great feedback, by the way. Thank you for mentioning that. And that is what I hope everybody watching takes away too. And I know as we do this, we'll get better and better. Maybe we'll have to do this again sometime because I feel like there was so much that we didn't talk about as much as we did. So we'll have to set that up. But yeah, just last shout out. If someone wants to reach out to Wampa, where do they go? How do they connect with you?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So it's Wampa, just like Juan Pablo, but without the blow.
Just put together.
Wampa underscore Otalora, or just impactcreators.ca.
Hmm.
But basically, just look for Juanpa Otalora on Facebook, and that's usually where I hang out
Facebook.
the most. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, if any of you have been watching my videos, now you know where they came from. And also, just hope you appreciate this as well. We'll be back again in a couple weeks, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Cool.